Hello and welcome to another episode of 177 Nations of Tasmania. Macau is a former Portuguese colony off the south coast of China, which, like its larger brother Hong Kong, has been living under the one country, two systems approach since 1999, when the administration was handed from Portugal to China. But Macau maintains its own separate identity, which contains aspects of both the Portuguese and Cantonese traditions. Macau's distinctive cuisine is a particular reflection of that. Now, Ariana left Macau at the end of her university studies to complete a Master of Translating and Interpreting in Brisbane. After graduating and feeling a bit lost for a time, she would gain work in the translating and interpreting business. Things didn't quite work out as well as she would have liked, and she would eventually relocate to Tasmania just a few years ago, attracted by the federal government's regional migration program. Her move to Tasmania, though, forced a change in career, and at first she worked in childcare, and now she works in the events industry. So this is a bit of a basic outline. Please stay tuned to find out more about Macau's distinctive culture and the experiences and challenges Ariana has overcome during her time in Australia so far.
So my name is Ariana. I'm from Macau, and it's just a city next to Hong Kong. It's because not so many people know where exactly it is. And I moved to Tasmania 4.5 years ago. I consider myself sort of like a 50% local now.
As you say, not so many people know Macau like they know Hong Kong. What was it like growing up there?
Well, I think the neighborhood in Macau is not as distinguished as like Australian suburbs. So basically, it's pretty much the same. I live in like a really packed area with like all the high-rise buildings, and it seems that all the neighbors know each other because we're living so close, and even sometimes you can eavesdrop what they're talking about next door. Okay. So yeah, lack of privacy if you're living in like a high-rise building. And also I feel like the education, the way we grow up is really different from the one from the Australian kids. We spend most of our time not exploring ourselves, but studying hard, because our goal is to get into a new and high-paid job. So I've spent most of my childhood studying in the subjects maybe that was not really good at, such as mathematics. Spend maybe 4 or 5 hours every day after school. So my child is basically studying. So sometimes I'm jealous of Australian kids, how they can enjoy their after school time, playing around. Yeah. I'm jealous.
I've heard that from a few people from East Asian countries that even after school, you are still spending time studying till quite late. And was it like the style of learning? Was it just sort of having to memorize a lot of information, or what kind of things did you have to do when it came to study?
Well, when it comes to study, to my understanding, I know Australian education focus more in interactive learning. But in Asia, we do need to memorize a lot of things. Of course, there are good and bad sides for this type of education. We probably, after we graduate, we have a lot of like comprehensive knowledge in many things that we don't need to know in our university study. But yeah, I think the studying style is more like memorizing a lot of tests. And even for the mathematics, it's not more focusing on explaining how these formulas working, but it's just teach you how to work around this formula. I'm not sure if it makes sense. Yeah. And also for parenting style is also different, because the parents always want us to be best and be competitive in the society. So we back in my generation, I'm not sure about now, like the kids from 2000s, but back in my generation, I was sent to learn different things, like to try different things to see which type of talents I would be good at. The first things that my mom tried is gymnastics, but I couldn't even do a split, so I was excited by the trainer. And the second thing was piano. I didn't like it because I thought actually I was interested in music, but my piano teacher was really harsh. Because my fingers are probably not really good for playing pianos, a bit short and small. So she would hit me with a ruler. So I just lost my interest. I couldn't do it. So I quit it in 3 months. And the next thing is my mom tried to get me to do something more ladylike and learn some maybe social dance. I'm not good at that too. So eventually I got into more writing and language learning.
And what did your parents do?
I think So it's more like my family. So my family is really like a typical Macau style family. My mom is like a full-time housewife, so she took care of everyone's meals and pick us up from the schools every day. And my dad is like a salesperson. He sells cars.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the people who lived around you in the building, did they have similar backgrounds, or was it varied?
It's really varied. I actually don't remember. But sometimes when I grow up, they start to care about my relationship. When I become a teenager, they try to get me to know maybe their nephews or their sons.
Oh, okay.
And they try to introduce me boyfriends. I think that's a really typical things to do in Asia. Like all the aunties or uncles start to care about your relationship status when you get into like when you pass 18 and get into 20s. Sometimes they come up, oh, is your daughter dating someone? Does your daughter have a boyfriend now? I have someone like maybe she would be interested. That's like very typical, but sometimes it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing sometimes, but yeah.
So you had sort of nosy neighbours sometimes.
Yeah, I think this is quite typical in Macau or Hong Kong. We call them like aunties and uncles.
And so when you were going back to being at school in Macau, what was the classroom like? Did you have big classes?
Well, we have big classes. You can't imagine. I know that you have small classes here, but in us, it can be up to 50 people in one small classroom. So they don't have like a big round table like that in here, but they have like each individual study desk with a small drawer. Old-fashioned ones. They still have them now. And for each student, just work individually on their own. There are good things and bad things. People growing up in these one, we probably are more, we focus our individual work a bit more, I think, to me. But in Australia, the system encourage people to collaborate. Mm-hmm. I think there are good sides and bad sides. I love both styles.
So in the classroom, everyone just sits quiet and listens to the teacher? Is that the way it is?
Yeah, so usually the teacher is the king in the classroom. He just would stand on the platform and just talk for 45 minutes straight. No interaction. You just need to listen to them. And they also would apply punishment if you have poor performance. We have like a midterm test for all of the for every year. For even pupils or high school. So during the test period, they would single out those students who didn't pass. Yes, so and then you would be the last, maybe these tests, they have like 10 people fail this exam. So they will single out those 10 papers and ask them come out to collect those papers. I think that's really embarrassing and
not good for your self-confidence.
It's not good. And I was growing up in that. And what's the consequence I feel for the students is we become too hard on ourselves and we have to do everything perfect, which we really can't be perfect. It's more focused on individual performance in Asia. I can't say in Asia, it's too general, but back in the time that the education style is more like focus on your individual performance. Yeah. And this really, I feel like it really hurt the students' dignity, and I don't feel it has a good impact on me, even on me now. I try to change, but it does affect the way I work.
Yeah.
I'm too hard on myself, always work behind.
And it sounds like it's very much focused on your exam results. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. So it does not really care about your understanding of the subject. It cares about more the score, because during the exam period there is always a high suicide rate.
Yeah, right.
During that time, even in Hong Kong, it was always on the headline that someone jumped from a big building and killed themselves because they were too stressed at the exam. They just can't stand that.
Yeah.
So it even happened. Even, for example, the buildings, right opposite to mine, they always have student suicide from that building. It's opposite to where I live. I think that schooling system actually wasted my time, wasted my life on it, because I was forced to study something I'm not interested in. Maybe I could be interested in it, but maybe it's just the education style that makes us lose the interest, because it was so stressful and we can't really enjoy the fun and the beauty of that subject itself. That's how I feel. And I think it's one of the reasons I want to leave that place. It's a
Okay.
beautiful place. But I can't imagine that if in the future I have children, I don't want them to go through what I was going through.
Yeah.
That was miserable. I don't want them to do that. I think that was one of the reasons why I want to study abroad. Because
Yeah, okay.
on the day I decided to apply to a overseas university. I told my dad, I think when the time that I took the flight, I wouldn't come back. That's actually what I told him. And then he also encouraged that. I think if you can build up your life in another country, that's a better choice for you, because Macau is too small. And we have a really just one focus industry, which is the tourism, but the gambling tourism, which kills a lot of talents. Many people, they study in one specialized skill. For example, they can't really use their skills in Macau. So actually, many of my friends have left too. Yeah.
Okay, so there isn't the variety of industries that give you those opportunities to do other things.
Yes. Yeah. So many people has decided to leave Macau, I think, but it's still a good place.
And so when you were at school doing all this, did you have any ambition or plan of what you might do in the future when you left school?
I think I was so much influenced by my parents that I just need to get good score, get into a good university, and get a high pay job. I think that's almost maybe 80% of the students, many people's ideas when they're studying in high school. So I think the top subjects that we pick for university is usually doctors, lawyers, architects. These three is the most picked majors. And translation, actually, I study translation for my bachelor degree. Is also one of the hot choices. It's because also translation and interpretation is a high paid job in Macau. In Australia, it's more like, it's not really business focused. It's more like a welfare focus. Translating and interpreting, they're more like providing for the government, for the welfare system, for the doctors. I think this is also meaningful. But in Macau, they have different focus. They focus on business and diplomatic field.
Then when you left school, you went to study translation, interpreting? Like, what was
Yeah. So my course is called Chinese English language translation and interpretation. I did that in Macau for my bachelor. I really loved it.
And was that a 3-year course?
That's 4 years. So
4
the
years,
difference between Australia and maybe Hong Kong and Macau, our bachelor is all 4 years course.
Okay, like America.
Yeah. So mostly the last year is for you to prepare for your graduation project. But the first 3 years is more focusing on your knowledge in this industry and in this field.
Okay.
And we have done a lot of I think my course is more like a classroom base as well. So we have done a lot of paperwork, a lot of writing as well. I feel like my courses were almost similar to my high school, just a lot of classrooms and writing, and half-year internship for different government departments.
And did you have a good base of English language before you went to university?
I think I did, because for my course, I remember they have 2,000 candidates for the first round of the exam, and then they filter the suitable candidates to just 200, just like from 2,000 to 200, and then they interview those people to test your language skills and ask you about more like academic knowledge, and then also the writing test, and then from these 200 people they choose 75 to attend the course. Yes, so it was really competitive.
When you graduated, or when you were about to graduate, what was your plan? What did you see yourself doing?
I think just like many graduates, I can't say many, but some graduates, they're quite lost about themselves, as I think I was, because after I completed my master degree in Brisbane, I actually was confused by what I was learning in the school. So I do not think I wanted to continue with translation because I lost the interest. My course was more of like focusing on NATI and teach you how to pass throughout the whole master degree. I was not really happy with that because back in the day, I was more like focusing on academic side, but that one is more focusing on NATI and how to pass it. So I was a bit lost. But eventually I still get into the translation and interpretation industry. They call it localization, to work in there for around a year.
So we're talking about in Australia now, aren't we?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, in Australia.
And I should explain, there'll probably be people thinking, what's NATI? It's the Accreditation Authority for Interpreters and Translators.
Yeah. So in order to work in some hospital, they don't, like some tasks, they don't require the NATI the certification. But in most cases now, they try to standardize this to require all the interpreters to have these credential. Yeah, it's good to have NATI, but at the same time, it cannot be necessary for many tasks, I think. But yeah, I think this industry is actually meaningful because you are helping the foreigners to get around the daily necessity and to help them to solve some situation they can't do it by themselves. So I think this is a meaningful job, and I feel that I have the fulfillment within this job. I still love it.
So once you finished your course in Brisbane, your masters, did you then start doing jobs in Brisbane?
I was jobless for a while, maybe because of my visa. Because back then my visa only allows me to stay in Australia for 2 years. And when many companies, they look at your visa status, they will hesitate because why do I invest in someone who can only stay there for 2 years? So I have a lot of challenges. And also all I have apart from translation was soft skills. It makes it even more difficult. How can we prove that we have these soft skills? They wouldn't know until they see you in the interview. But on the resume, they probably would pass you because they always have better choice, especially in like big cities. They have a big pool of people. So I think I was jobless for around 5 months, and then I got like an invitation to work to join the translation agency from LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is really important, especially for freelancing providers. And then those providers, even Australia or overseas, they always try to contact you and ask you and to maybe offer you some jobs. I think that's really important, and that's how I got into my first contract with a translation agency. And also self-marketing is important.
Yeah. Absolutely. And what kind of jobs did you do?
My very first one is an agency in Brisbane that they have a contract. Back then they have a contract with Queensland Health. And then so my first task was to interpret for the hospitals and to communicate between the patient and the medical professionals. I remember back then I was so freaking nervous because in university they never teach you. They actually seldom tell you how the situation would be like in the workplace. So I was so nervous. All the information I have is the name of the patient, which department which department I'm going to. So according to the department, I researched into it and I learned all the medical terms. The first 3 months was very stressful for me. I almost spent 5 hours every day to learn the medical terms. So I feel like the hospital staff should respect interpreters more. But then in Brisbane, not all the administrators in hospital will respect interpreters. They just think that you just come here and show up and then sign off, get paid and go. That's the reality. But actually, for many people, in order to deliver good standard service, we need to study the medical terms. Before every task, I would study. For example, if today I'm going to attend a dental appointment, I would have to study maybe the anatomy of the teeth so that I can recognize the biological terms or the medical terms of each teeth. And maybe I also have to research and predict what procedures these patients is going to have. And I will pick the most common procedures in this medical appointment. and then I would study them. I would spend maybe 2 hours study them and mark all of the important and key terms, just to avoid that I would make any maybe mistakes or some misinterpretation.
Okay, so you're in Brisbane and you finished your masters. Did a bit of work there. How long were you in Brisbane?
I think 3 years, around 3 years in Brisbane. Yeah, just studying and work almost a year, a little bit, and then decided to move here. I think the reason why many people who move here is because of the regional skill worker scheme. Because actually it was really difficult to get jobs here. There are not enough job market. Even the local people was complaining about the employment rate here.
And of course, the problem with the regional visa program is that it means a lot of people have moved to Tasmania, and it's made it more competitive to find work because there's a whole lot of people looking for work at the same time.
Yes, and also, but some people, they decided to open business, so maybe it also increased some positions. But it's challenging, like looking for jobs in Tasmania. I think I was stressful, and back in the day. But I was lucky enough that I studied childcare, and director in the work placement I've done offered me a casual position as a child carer. It opened my sight of how different the Australian education system is. For children, it's so good. I feel like after I've seen that system, I have no regret. I think if one day I want to have children, I think Australia is the place, because they really put the children first for their own development. And they really respect the children to grow up to be themselves. They have more freedom to explore themselves. So I think it's one of the biggest reasons I want to stay. Is good for the next generation. But childcare, I still think it's a meaningful job, but it's maybe a bit stressful for me. I think it's more suitable for people who can multitask, because I really can't multitask. Because you imagine you're in a workplace taking care of the children, and you also have to use your ears to listen what's happening behind you, and use your eyes to see what's happening in your front, your left, and your right. That's a tough work. I think the childcare worker deserve more respect, and also the work hour was also not stable. Okay. One of the difference between the Asian countries and Australian work culture is, in Macau we don't really have casual positions. It provides people more stability financial wise. But in Australia, it has more casual positions. I have been a casual worker for 3 years until I came across my current boss. And I'm really grateful to what she has offered me and the opportunities. But I have done casual work for 3 years. And sometimes I need to worry whether I have enough money to pay rent for my next cycle, whether I have enough money to pay for my food. And eventually how I solve this problem is I needed to outsource my job overseas. I needed to get onto interpreting again and work for an American company at the midnight, because we have time difference. That's how I make up my expenses.
Oh, so that's how you earn extra money to get by.
Yes, yeah. It was tough time, but it built up my personalities, my characters, and I become a stronger person. So all these things, eventually you will worth it.
So you did childcare for a while?
Yes.
And how did you get into your current work?
My current work. So
tell us what it is first.
Okay, so now my current work, I'm working in an event management agency, and I love the job because I feel it's more like me. I like to plan things ahead, and I also like to try different restaurants and food, and I like to organize some parties. I like communication, so I think it's so far it's the perfect job for me. How I get into that is, I think it's just like so many people, I apply from sick. But very luckily, I got a response on the same day. from the business owner. They organized an interview for me. I was freaking nervous, but so the first one is like an initial talk, like a Zoom meeting. Actually, it's my first formal interview, video interview, very first one. So I spent, I think, many times to practice, but eventually it didn't go the way I wanted, but I still get into the second one. So the second one is finally in the office. What I did is like, I'm not sure what they want. So I just maybe, because I've done marketing before, maybe I'll just try something I'm familiar with. So I just, I did a very brief report according from the gap they are having from a marketing perspective from their websites and the Instagram, and then I just provide some suggestions and how we can solve the problem, and they also asked me some situational questions about how can I handle stress and how do I process my day-to-day tasks if I'm in the office. So I passed that. But my advice to foreigners is to get prepared for situational interviews, because I know that this is not a interview culture in Asia. So I recommend that you go onto YouTube and search STAR to study how you should answer these interview questions. I think that's a big help for me. Applying for some jobs that you probably have done before, you probably would know. But if you really want to get this job and you haven't worked in this role before, I highly recommend to go onto YouTube and check out some reality video about what those people actually do in their day-to-day life, and then you consider yourself whether you can handle those tasks and stress. And then you apply for the job. That's how I choose a job now if I want to change my job. Because in our culture, we just randomly apply the jobs and submit the same resume. I think in Macau, we don't really focus on those things. But I know that in Australia, you need to change your cover letter and your resume, according to different jobs. But I remember back in the days in Macau, it's not really a thing.
And so you got the job?
Yeah, I got the job eventually, and I was waited like for 3 weeks, and I got it, and I was so happy. And then it also provided me enough income for to pass my visa requirement. So I feel like that was my best week, because it's actually my very first official job.
What do your tasks involve in your job? What are your main tasks, I guess?
My main task is more like a project management. So we handle different projects every day, and then we have to set up a critical path to make sure you don't miss any deadlines. That's my major task. And then the second major one is communication, a lot of external and internal communications to make sure that we push the project forward. That's the main task. I think it's more like being organized for the event industry. I'm still learning, actually, because I'm not a multitasking person. It's a big challenge for me. I'm still learning. But I think the key thing is to manage your time effectively.
And what do you think is the biggest thing you've learnt so far from doing this role?
Well, I think it trains me to become a more open-minded person, because I was an introvert. I think I have been, but I think this job changed me to become more open-minded to people and to talk more. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
I think this job have a good impact on me.
So do you think it's helped build up your self-confidence a bit?
Yes, it does. It does. I think I have been confident, but I'm not like a really talkative person. So, but this job, it helped me to become more open-minded. I love it. And thank you, my boss. She gave me the opportunities. I wouldn't expect someone would hire a person without this relevant background to be in this role. She really invest in and trust the staff that they can do it. I think that's what a leader should do. Yeah, I think she's a role model. So far, one of the best leaders I have come across.
What are things that Macau are known for, which may be distinct from other parts of
China.
World, or China?
Well, Macau is a really unique place, that you like before, I think before the 1800s, it belongs to China, right? And then after the 1800s, for 400 years, it belongs to Portugal. It was colonized through Portugal. And how did they occupy this small peninsula? Was they just park somewhere in our harbor, and they didn't want to leave. And that's how they occupy our peninsula for 400 years. But what they bring us is the rich Portuguese culture and the food. I think they're the best thing. If you go to Macau, you will see that it just looks like Europe. It's really beautiful, and we still have a strong Portuguese culture, but we call this Macinese. They also that the culture is also different from the Portugal culture, because those people, they also speak Cantonese. They sounds like Cantonese too, but at the same time they speak their own version of Portuguese. They added their own terms, but I don't know. But I so far as I know that the Macau cultural bourgeoisie, I don't remember the official name. They try to preserve this culture, and then they still keep that the theater performing art from the Macanese culture. So if you go to Macau, maybe you can pay attention whether they have like a play going in one of the theater. And our theater is amazing because it's in a World Heritage building.
Right.
Our theater is just, I think, one of the most beautiful ones I have seen. It's small and beautiful and Portuguese style, and have a bit of like a Catholic style. I really love it. But in terms of food, our food is, except for the pork chop bun, the famous pork chop bun you can see in the tourism area, and we have the Portuguese egg tart. But the Portuguese egg tart is also different from the Portuguese, like the Portuguese egg tart in Portugal.
Yeah.
I know that the Portuguese egg tart in Portugal, there has more milk in it, so it's more like less dense. We have a lot of sugar, of course, and then they have a lot of egg yolks. They have more egg yolks in it, so the color is a bit more black yellow, while in the Portuguese ones, it's more like light yellow custard tart. So I think I still prefer Macau's Portuguese egg tart. It's just amazing. So it's a must-have dessert in there. I think you can still have it in Hobart. There's one shop on Collins Street.
Yeah,
it's called like Tasty Bun. They sell it, and they taste quite authentic.
Okay.
Actually, yeah, I think people should go to try if they want to try Portuguese egg tart. And the other thing is our cuisine on the dinner table. There's so it's more like a Portuguese cuisine mixing with Malaysian style. We have a lot of curry dish in the Macau style Portuguese food. And the most famous one is the Portuguese chicken. The Portuguese chicken is not the roasted chicken. It's actually in a curry stove and cooking with some unexpected ingredients like soy sauce, cooking wine, olives, and chorizo. Actually, the Portuguese, the Portuguese sausage. But I mean, you can replace it with the chorizo, the Spanish style. It's actually no difference, I think. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's an interesting recipe because what makes it different, I think, is like how would you put soy sauce in it? I think it's a really Chinese thing to cook.
So it's a real fusion of some typical Chinese ingredients and Portuguese.
Yeah, and there's some Malaysian spices. We still have like the turmeric in it. And olives. How would you combine those weird things together? But they're amazing, like surprisingly good. Yeah, I think that's the most signature dish. The other thing is like more like a traditional Portuguese food, like the rice pudding full of cinnamon. And I think there's another signature dish we like. I'm not sure if it's actually come from Portugal, but we have the clams, cooking butter. I think butter, maybe chicken or seafood stock, lemon and coriander. That one is one of the best food. So
there's still a bit of Portuguese influence that you can experience in Macau.
I think the so-called, I would say so-called the hardware of Macau, the outside, the buildings are still Portuguese style. But I think the Portuguese influence is less and less in Macau, of course, because we have been returned to China for many years since 1999. So not many people can speak Portuguese now, even though it's our official language. I think if you want to get a government job, you need to learn it to get into a really high position, because they still have some business and trade with the Portuguese-speaking countries around the world.
Okay.
Yes. We still have a strong tie with those countries. We actually have a calendar every year in November. It's a big thing. Lasts for a week. and they have the carnival, and then they have performance, food, and some traditional games that you can do in the carnival. Yeah, and then from afternoon to evening is it's quite fun. I think it's one of the things I missed that, but it only happened in November. I don't think I would come back in November. So maybe 1 year, maybe next year.
So at the carnival, is it similar to like in Brazil where they have a street parade?
I think it's similar. We do have the samba, and then we have the dance. So because we invite all of the Portuguese speaking countries to come here to perform and to hold a stand in here. It's like a kind of like a festival, signature festival in Macau. So it's a big thing in Macau. I think it's one of the signatures. Yeah, I think 5 years ago, the university also opened a course to teach people how to manage and organize the diplomatic and business tie with the Portuguese-speaking countries, and it's a bachelor course. Can you imagine that it's a bachelor course specializing in this? It's really important in Macau to do the business with Portuguese-speaking country.
Okay, so there are sort of connections with countries like Brazil and Portugal.
Yes, we do. I don't remember how many countries we have, but it must be more than 15.